Hello, I'm Liz Zorab of Byther Farm. Welcome to my podcast, Gardening Demystified.
This is a Byther Farm podcast.
Hello, I'm Liz Zorab and this is the Byther Farm podcast, Gardening Demystified. And today I've been joined by my really good friend, Jane Kelly from Jane's Allotment. Hiya Jane, how are you?
Hi Liz, I'm great, thank you. Sitting in my garden, just watching the world go by, listening to the birds. Absolutely gorgeous.
I can hear them in the background.
Can you?
Yeah. Better than the sound of being outside at the moment here, because the ducks have got one on them today.
Oh, but they're beautiful though. They are beautiful. We've got the very standard garden birds, sparrows, blue tits, blackbirds and the odd robin. But they mean the world to me. And especially at the moment, I'm spending so much time just watching them.
Yeah,
it's really
lovely.
Because
it's so quiet, there's so little traffic, you can really hear them, can't you?
You can. And in the morning, the dawn chorus, our dawn chorus usually consists of the cars going past on the road outside. And the cars are down ridiculously, we'll get the odd one going past now. So you can actually hear them first thing, So, yeah, it's all good. All good.
All good. So, Jane, we've had, I'm going to do a confession now. We've actually recorded this podcast at least twice before, haven't we?
I've got a feeling it's double figures, Liz, to be honest. It depends how many edits you add in and how many cuts. Yes, you would think we'd be able to do it quite easily by now. But, it's all, you get what you see, don't you? You get what you see. It's warts and all, so...
So, Jane, tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel and how you got to be as far as making videos.
I started, I was trying to think this the other day. I think making videos has now become such a big part of life that I can't actually remember when I started. It was about 3 or 4 years ago when we first got our first allotment, and I did just want to make a record of what we were doing there. And being someone I think we're all a bit like this. You don't like to hear yourself. You don't like to hear a recording of yourself. And to see yourself actually moving around and talking at the same time, what on earth would you want to do that for? You sort of look at yourself in the mirror in a dim light in the morning, and that's it for the day. You don't want to see anyone. Certainly don't want to hear your own voice. But once I got into the swing of it, I started to do it more and more, and it's sort of grown from there. But what got me hooked was, and I know, again, I've said this before, was that first bit of feedback from someone else. So I put my first video out. And really, I suppose if I was doing it for a diary for myself, I wouldn't have put it out there. But you are curious, you think, what other people would think? What's this going to be? And lo and behold, someone said, hey, that was great, I enjoyed it. And I was so thrilled. And that smallest part of the wedge, that communication, kept me going. And that's what keeps me going now. And like I've just said before, my channel is very warts and all. It's not watching Monty Don on Gardener's World here in the UK doing his professional stuff, and it's all being set up and it's beautifully filmed. It's what happens in a real garden, and there's going to be mistakes. And again, I think first of all, I thought, I can't put that on. No, people think I'm not very good. But actually, again, it's part of being a gardener. And so sharing and the downs is great. And I found that people really enjoy that because they can relate to it. But it's, it's certainly the feedback that's kept me going. And I'm sure you're the same, Liz.
Absolutely,
Yeah, you read every single comment. Sometimes you don't get around to replying to it straight away, but it means a lot. It means a lot, and that's why we do it. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, Jane, I know that before you did videos on YouTube, you did something else, didn't you?
I knew you were going to bring that up. I did have a blog, and actually, I had a blog. I started a blog because I started watching a podcast. Can you watch a podcast? I started watching this woman talking about all the crafts and everything that she was doing. And at the time I was heavily into sewing and knitting and crochet, all those handicraft type things. And again, I thought, okay, yeah, I can start taking photos and write a bit about it. Again, bit of a diary. And I'm not, and I know you're going to ask me this, I'm not going to give the name away of the blog, but I really enjoyed doing it and made quite a few friends along the way who, you know, I corresponded with. And again, was, I suppose, you know, looking back, that was that little look into the community that we've got now. It was that blogging scene. But yes, my heart was really in my garden. The thing is, before we got the allotment, I didn't have a lot to garden with. I've got it's a Victorian house. We've got a small yard, postage stamp back garden, which I'm in now. And, you know, so I couldn't really share what I wanted to share. I couldn't really fulfill what I wanted to do in the garden, my crafts. So, yes, it was, it was quite good. I really enjoyed doing it, but it was time to move on. I think sometimes things just run their course. Yeah. And I was ready into doing something different, you know, and so that's what I did. And I'm not telling you the name of my blog.
So you have your small garden at your house, and then you have the allotment that you've got now, but it hasn't always been this one, has it?
It hasn't always been
this allotment that you're at now, is it?
No. When I started, I mean, we lived in the northeast, and we had a very small patch of ground then, and I think I've mentioned to you, Liz, one of the first things we did at the very first allotment, which was, pre-kids, so 25, 30 years ago. That's a long time ago. We actually lived in a first floor flat, and we'd sort of taken over the backyard and had pots in it. So when we got our first allotment there, one of the first things we did was turn half of it to grass. So we had garden. So we had somewhere to actually sit. And the fact that it was on a slope didn't matter to us because we still had some outdoor space to sit in. So we loved that. But that was at the time when we just finished uni, or poly as it was then. And we were moving around quite a lot, so we couldn't take things with us. But wherever we've been since then, my interest in gardening has grown and grown and grown. But the first one that we got here, where I am now in Staffordshire, was, well, when I started videoing, so about 4 or 5 years ago. Had it for about 2 years. Absolutely loved it. And really it was big enough, but it was a half-size council allotment. Right. So whereas it was an absolute abundance of space at the time, it soon filled up.
Yeah.
Every corner was packed, and we got to the stage where there was nothing more we could do with it. So Mike just happened to be visiting a friend up at our new allotment and realised just quite how big and quite how glorious they are. Yeah. And around, and within a few days we were offered this new allotment where we are now, and it's, if you've seen the videos, it's just a little bit of heaven for us. And I hope some of that does come across. But
I think that does, yeah.
It's absolutely switches, you know, you just walk in, it's like, it is an oasis, you know. So saying that though, just saying how big it is, we still haven't finished it all. There's so much to do. There's always going to be something to do. But we have also just procured a little bit of land from our neighbour as well to put all our squash in. So, you know.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? Is to do the favour by helping smother the weeds on their allotment and just, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. So we're really thrilled about that. So yeah, it's and I think I'm very, very lucky because Mike, my partner, he's as interested as I am. And there are times when I really, you know, there are times, and we've got to be honest, so you just think, have I really got to go and do that today? And he'll G me up, he'll keep me going, he'll motivate me to do it, and vice versa. So there's the two of us who can bounce off each other with ideas, with planning, getting the work done, you know. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that way.
Jane, I am asking everybody, just first, don't think about it, first reaction, what's your favourite vegetable?
Asparagus. Good. I was so quick on that one. It's just in my mind all the time at the moment. And on my last video, I was so excited because we've got about a ½ inch sprout of our first asparagus crop ever showing, you know, and you think it's dead. You don't see anything for months and months and months, and it's starting to come up. But then, of course, I saw your asparagus on your Facebook page. I was green with envy. I was asparagus green with envy. But yeah, what a treat to be able to grow that.
Amazing.
And it costs a lot of money at the shops. It's quite a treasure.
It is a pleasure, and the nice thing about it, of course, is because it's perennial, and it just gets bigger every year. You can just harvest more and more each year.
Oh, we're just not quite there yet. We're still at we've only planted it a year ago, so we might just take, if we get more than one spear this year, we might just take one or two to sample, but we'll have to leave the rest for it to build up the root system. So
that's what we did.
But yeah, that was quick, wasn't it? There's no argument there. Asparagus, definitely. What's yours, Liz? So many to choose from. There we go.
I think it's one of those questions that you need to be asked maybe 6 times a year.
Yeah,
because every couple of months there's something else that's season, and it's when we get to new potatoes, I'll be like, oh, new potatoes, but actually I wouldn't want to eat them all year round.
No, well, that's the beauty of it, and I think that's why we keep so interested in the gardening. It's changing. It's not like it's one thing that you do and you get better and better and better at it. Well, obviously you do get better and you learn things, but it's continually changing. There are so many outside factors. The weather, for one, your soil, so many different things can change. But the seasons, you do appreciate seasonal vegetables.
Yeah.
Tomatoes. I've never been a big tomato fan, but growing your own tomatoes, getting those first few, oh my goodness, it's just fantastic. You're sick to death of them a couple of months later, but at the time, and it keeps it fresh. It does keep it fresh because you've got long enough from the end of the season to the beginning of the next one to have forgotten just how thrilling it is, and it'll again,
So do you preserve a lot of your food?
Not as much as we should. I really need to get into freezing a lot more food. I jam and I chutney. I don't know what hot water bathing is. I know you've done a couple of videos on it. I need to have a proper look at that. But yeah, I've been freezing a lot more this last year. We actually bought a new freezer to be able to stock up in. But drying as well. We had such a bad bean crop last year that I've realised just how much I miss them over the winter. I miss dried beans. Usually got big jars of them on the shelf, and we ran out of those pretty quickly. So yeah, all those ways really, and wine, of course. We've done the wine.
Yeah,
doesn't taste great. We've got a lot. It's a learning curve. Let's just put it that way.
What sort of wine did you do?
We did grape. Not to make it particularly difficult, but Mike, actually, we had the grapes, red grapes, which we inherited with the allotment, which is wonderful.
Nice.
And he had a huge brewing barrel, and I went into the kitchen one night, and there he was, kneeling on the floor with his hands in this barrel. I thought, what on earth are you doing? And he was squeezing the grapes by hand. So in one way, I was thankful that he wasn't actually stamping on them with his feet, but he put a lot of time and effort, let's put it that way, into sorting this grape wine out. And he got 2.5 demijohns, and it doesn't taste good. It tastes good. I don't know what we're going to use it for, but I think when we run out of everything else, it might be time to tackle the wine. It's learning curve, like I say.
Yeah, and it's
lots of different ways, and I think it's really important to preserve in so many different ways, because, for example, if you've got a power cut, if you lose everything in your freezer, that's it, your whole lot's gone. Yeah. If I had one year where I had a cupboard full of all my glass jars full of preserves. Cupboard fell on the floor because it was too heavy, because it was full of glass jars with preserves in. So I lost the whole lot, So I do think if you can have a variety just as a fail-safe, so if one lot goes, you've got something else there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, makes complete. And that's why I was looking at doing the canning as well as the freezing.
Yeah.
I freeze everything.
Is canning the same as hot water bathing?
Sorry?
Is canning the same as hot water bathing?
Yes. So there are two types of canning. One is hot water bath, and the other one is pressure canning.
Right, okay.
So pressure canning is like when you buy a tin of beans at the supermarket. Or, well, I'll tell you the thing that it's most likely. So, you know, when you buy a jar of asparagus tips, you get those long white asparagus. That's been pressure canned. But it is the same as tins. It's just that it's done in a glass jar rather than in a tin. And the difference between them is that some fruits are acidic enough, and actually tomatoes as well, are acidic enough to be able to can at a lower pressure. But to be absolutely safe, something that isn't acidic enough to preserve itself needs to have the pressure canning to make it safe.
Do you think there's any difference in taste between the pressure cookered and the canned?
No, I don't imagine there is. I've got to say, I'm not a huge fan of, we call it bottling here in the UK.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of bottled canned food because I think a lot of it is very mushy.
It seems to be more popular in the US, I think.
I think it is. And I don't know whether that's about power supplies and therefore maybe the electric is less reliable. Who knows? Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. That cross section of storage is a really good idea. What is going on at your allotment at the moment?
The allotment at the moment, I've had a right old talk to myself about whether I should be going up there in the current situation, which I'm not going to talk about. But actually, it's a good place to be, mentally as well as physically. And also, we're growing our own food, and ultimately that takes the pressure off the shops. I say that, you know, with our one courgette we'll probably get in July. But yeah, at the moment we've been up, because the weather's been so beautiful. We've had lovely weather now for over a week, and it's set to be beautiful again for the next week or so up here in Staffordshire. But I've managed to get my parsnips in.
Brilliant.
It's a new way to me of putting parsnips in. We've got some peas in, but we're everything else we put this time last year. We were putting in our perennial things, so we were putting in our fruit bushes and that sort of thing. That can all be left now. That's all been pruned. That's being left to its own devices. But yeah, as far as sowing is concerned, we've sowed the parsnips. We've got our first and second earlies in, potatoes, peas in. But the next thing that we're preparing, got the broad beans in, garlic and onions are in. You know, the more you think, the more you realise quite how much you've done. Excuse me, but the big thing at the moment is getting our bean trenches ready, because sort of early to mid-May we're going to be starting to put the beans out. And much as we're trying to move over to no dig, this year the beans are going to be in trenches. So literally digging a trench about 8 inches, 10 inches deep. And every time we go up to the allotment, we're taking up all our kitchen scraps and shoving them in at the bottom of the trench. And so eventually they'll reach a level, we'll top that up with soil, and we can stick the beans straight in. But I'm determined this year to get a good bean crop. Like I say, I had to do about 4 sowings last year because all the seedlings were just getting munched as soon as they showed their tips. So I might be using some plastic bottles as little poshers.
So wet in May last year.
Oh, I know. It was awful. But again, that's the thing though, isn't it? You just think you're good at it because the year before we got a fantastic thing of beans, and you just sort of think you've got it sussed, and it's a case of no. Mother Nature's got a different idea for you, and you're going to have to deal with it, you know. And again, that keeps it fresh. It's annoying at the time, but it does keep it fresh.
The problem with your bean crop failing, or any crop failing, is you then have that worry of what is it you're going to eat the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, sure, I know, because that's one of the things. Beans are brilliant to store. They're one of the best things.
What beans do you grow?
Again, what sort? Blotty, which are my favourites.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple of new ones. Golden wax, Kentucky yellow wax, basically like a yellow bean. That's the climbing bean. What other climbing beans have I got? I've got some scarlet runner beans from last year. This year as well, though, I'm going to try some dwarf beans. I've never really seen the point of them. And again, I think this is because I've never had that much space. But I've always thought if you're going to grow a bean, grow a runner bean, because that's going to grow really nice and tall and you get more stuff. But seeing the crops that other people get from dwarf bush beans,
Yeah,
I'm going to give them a go, you know. So I've got a couple of varieties of them. I've got some Cos Violette. I've got a handful of beans that fell out of a packet and are in the bottom of my box that I don't know what they are at all. So I'll put them in. And yeah, I can't think of the rest of them off the top of my head, but it's just going to be a good old variety, you know. Okay, I mean, mostly we grow our beans for the actual beans themselves rather than for the pods.
yeah.
Because even though when you first pick them, they're nice, when you pick the young ones, even if you keep picking the young ones, later on in the season, I find they start to get stringy quite early on. So we do tend to use the beans. And actually, it's been a revelation to me just how delicious fresh beans, fresh from the pod are. You know, I mean, you need to cook them. Oh my goodness, they're just fantastic. So that's, again, that's been a learning curve. And it's opened up a whole new realm of cookery to me about what you can do with fresh beans, you know. So I only used to ever get the kidney beans out of the tin or, you know, or dried beans, that sort of thing. So yeah, the taste of a fresh bean. You see, I'm thinking now beans might be one of my favourite things. No, I'm sticking with asparagus. That's what they think. Okay.
Not your dog.
No. Oh yeah, you can. He's like this somewhere.
So in your spare time, Jane,
Yeah.
let's change the subject a little bit. In your spare time, what are some of the things that you do that aren't gardening?
Like I mentioned before, it's anything to do with my hands, really. So sewing, I've been sewing for years and years and years. I started sewing at a time, sort of early teens, at a time when it was much, 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 much cheaper to buy material than it was to buy clothes. But now everything's changed. So if I want to sew something now, I've literally, you know, you feel like you've got to save up to go and get the material to do it. Yeah. But yeah, sewing, knitting, crochet, jigsaws. That's my
jigsaws. That's what I know you just told me you're doing a jigsaw at the moment.
I am, and usually, you know, they are reserved as a winter activity because I can justify it in the winter because, you know, it's dark nights. There's not a lot to do outside. You can snuggle down, you can hunker down, get the kitchen table out. It's not just any old jigsaws, Liz. They've got to be 1,000 piece, otherwise they're not worth looking at. So, but yeah, with this whole situation we're in at the minute, I resisted for several weeks. And then I just thought, oh, stuff it, I'm getting the jigsaw out. But goodness me, it doesn't half swallow up some time. But yeah, so another thing that I absolutely love, and I was only considering it really recently when I was talking to a friend about different films we'd been watching and trying to advise and, you know, get people to watch certain things. I'm a big film nerd. And I didn't realise till I started talking to this person, I've probably seen just about everything. I love watching films. I love the power of films, good films. I love where they take you. I love the escapism of them. And I did art history at uni years and years, and I specialised in film studies. And I think that's always stayed with me. And again, like I said before about Mike with the garden, he's as interested as I am. So yeah, so most weekends are spent, you know, looking up great films, you know, and maybe things that are slightly off the beaten track. So yeah, I'm a bit of a film nerd as well. So anything to do with my hands, jigsaws, films. I think that pretty much would sort me out on a desert island.
So we were talking earlier on about what's going on at the allotments at the moment.
Yeah.
So coming away from the allotment, what's actually going on in your garden at the moment? Have you got stuff in flower? Are you doing, is it ornamental or is that more vegetables?
It was ornamental, and then it was jam-packed with vegetables until we managed to get everything up to the allotment. But what I'm doing now this year, I had such a bit of a wake-up call, really, because I did at the back of my mind think, what about if the allotments are closed? Okay, I'm going to have to start making room in the garden again to grow some veg. So this year it's going to be a bit of a mix of ornamental and veg, so a proper old kitchen garden really. But at the moment we're just approaching my favourite time of year in the back garden. As I'm sitting here now, I'm looking at the marsh marigolds. I've got a standard rosemary bush which is in full flower. I've got begonia, forget-me-nots, which I'm afraid I do just let self-seed everywhere because I love them. Bluebells, primroses, pulmonaria, flowering currant. The clematis is all about to come. The blossom's just going. And as the blossom goes, the clematis comes out. And I think, again, not many people can have their
Sorry,
garden.
is that the hawthorn blossom or cherry tree blossom that's going?
We've got hawthorn, we've got plum, and we've got cherry in the garden at home. So they all sort of come together. And then, as I say, they fade. There's like the bridge in the middle. I'm sitting under at the moment actually, which is the clematis, and on the other side. And yeah, I think April, May is the best time for our garden. I just love it out here. It's just really lovely. Ramshackle, some might say, rustic, others might say it's certainly not neat and tidy, but it's just full of wildlife at the moment. Birds, butterflies, bees, it's wonderful. Sit here for hours, and I often do.
So if we end up not using any of the footage from our conversation, because we're recording this on a visual, and I don't want to say a brand name. So
no, it's a platform.
Yeah, for talking to someone else, so we can actually see each other. So I can see that Jane is sitting in her garden with a nice cup of tea, and she can see that I'm not in my garden.
Why is that, Liz? Why is that?
Do you know, I spent Tuesday, I spent 10 hours outside, and I might have overdone the sun a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So I limited myself yesterday, and I've been out this morning for about 4 hours. And now
Good grief. Well, I think, I think you've got your vitamin D quota for the day there, haven't you? I think you'd be absolutely fine. Yeah, I do. It is lovely out here. And again, I know I'm just looking around completely off camera, but it's a nice place to be. We've got the canal just next to us as well, so you can look up through the wrought iron gate and see, well, used to be boats going by. Of course, they're very few and far between at the moment, but it's still quite nice to see the ducks and the swans and things coming in, you know, that's good. That's all good.
So, Jane, are you happy for me to come back and have another chat with you in the height of summer? And
absolutely
about what you're doing on your plot, how it's all going, catch up with what's going on.
And I will be able to tell you just how well everything is going, because I'm being very optimistic.
Good.
My allotment will be abundant by then, yes. I do think it's always quite funny this time of year. Everything's flat, you know, or most things are flat.
Yeah.
And it soon fills up, doesn't it? And the space seems to get smaller and smaller, but that's why we do it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely lovely.
So if you're not yet familiar with Jane's YouTube channel, you can find her, Jane Kelly, Jane's Allotment. One or either or both of those should get you to her channel. Jane, thank you so much for joining me.
It's been lovely, Liz. It's been really nice talking to you and catching up. Okay, I'll speak to you again very, very soon, I hope.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Bye.
You've been listening to a By the Farm podcast. All rights reserved.